Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Amidst a massive standoff currently between the government and opposition in Parliament and a suspension spree that is still ongoing, the Lok Sabha today passed the CEC and EC Bill 2023. This bill seeks to regulate the appointment, the conditions of service and term of office of the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners. Now, this bill was earlier passed in the Rajya Sabha on December 12th. Opposition has been criticizing this bill as unconstitutional and an attempt to circumvent the Supreme Court judgment, which had included the Chief Justice of India in the CEC selection panel. The government's version of that panel replaces the CJI with a union minister. The government has maintained that there is clear separation of powers in Indian constitution and hence the CJI has been replaced as the judiciary cannot interfere in executive matters. They also point out that the Supreme Court judgment itself was valid only till Parliament passed a new law. It is also worth noting that earlier, before the Supreme Court verdict, there was no provision or guideline in the Constitution of India which highlighted the process to appoint election commissioners. Previous governments themselves used to make these appointments, and that has been the norm. But with this bill finally passing in both houses, will the neutrality of the Election Commission be questioned, as it has been in the past, especially when this bill was brought in Rajya Sabha? And would that be the right and fair criticism to make? We'll take that question to our guests in just a bit. But let me first bring to you what really has happened as far as this bill is concerned. So today, of course, the Lok Sabha passed the CEC and EC bill after a brief discussion, as most of the opposition MPs were suspended by the Speaker for the unruly behaviour. This bill was tabled in the upper house of the Parliament, remember, earlier on December 10 and passed on December 12. This bill will now replace the EC Act of 1991. The opposition says that this bill is against the Constitution, against the spirit of the Constitution, while Union Law Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal has said that this bill will make the process more transparent than it was. So what are the key pointers of this bill? First of all, it deals with the appointment and conditions of service of the CEC and EC, as I said. It also deals with their salaries, pension and terms of office. The bill has a provision or provisions regarding requirements and qualifications as well. It also establishes a search panel which will make a list of candidates, and the selection panel will then give the recommendations on the basis of the list provided to them to the President of India. The President of India then appoints the CECs and ECs. So the major difference really in both the search panel and the selection panels. Now, let's take a look at the differences that are there in the selection panel, which is the major bone of contention. So as the Supreme Court had suggested earlier in March this year, the selection panel was supposed to be comprised of the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice of India. This was a major issue that was debated even at that time, if that is the right thing to do, from the Supreme Court also. But what does the bill say now? Now that it has been passed from both houses, it has effectively been adopted, will be given an assent to become an act. The Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition stays, so there is a divergent point of view, but there will be a Union Cabinet Minister nominated by the Prime Minister that will be part of this selection panel, and that's really the major bone of contention. So the question we ask is this: on the basis of just this, will it be right to question the Election Commission's neutrality? This question becomes extremely important because we are, of course, gearing up in less than 5 months' time for the next general elections.
सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर जो आर्टिकल 50 में है, संविधान में लिखा हुआ है, उसके तहत ही लिखा है कि इस बिल को सर्वसम्मति से पास करें। ये बहुत प्रोग्रेसिव लॉ है।
पहली चीज तो यह है कि ये बिल नहीं है, ये बिलडोजर है, तो इस कानून को सुप्रीम कोर्ट में चुनौती भी देंगे।
The government is not ready to heed to the voice of the opposition.
Hello, Moto.
Let's go across to our guest joining us. Dolly Sharma is the Congress spokesperson joining us on the show. I'll also be joined shortly with the BJP spokesperson Siddharth Yadav. But first, I want to go across to Dolly Sharma. Dolly, I want to take the I want to go across first to Sumit Chander, actually, advocate joining us. Sumit Chander, there has been a lot of legalities and legalese that have been discussed as far as this bill is concerned. For the benefit of our viewers, would you just put it into context? Is it wrong of the executive, the parliament in this case, to decide who should be in the selection panel for the CEC?
See, for that, you need to understand the background as
Yes.
to what it was. Now, it all starts with the Constitution of India, Article 324, Sub-Article 2. And it's clearly stated there that the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners shall be made by the President. So that the Constitution provides, it cannot be challenged at all. In Anup Barnwal case, which the judgment was passed by a 5-judges bench in March 2023 on a PIL, Supreme Court held that there is a need for the Election Commission of India and CEC to be independent and fair. And that there should be a committee for appointment of CEC and ECI, which shall comprise of the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, and the Chief Justice of India. They said these three categories of people, basically to say that it is extremely important that the Election Commission of India and the Chief Election Commissioner function very independently, as it is an important part of democracy. But keep in mind, in the same judgment, the Supreme Court also clarified that this committee shall function only till the Parliament drafts an alternative.
Yes.
End of the democracy is by the people, so the Parliament has to take the final call on this.
No, that I did mention, but the question that is being raised is whether the government of the day is right or wrong in removing the CGI. Was the CGI ever supposed to play a role in the selection of the CEC?
See, there are the three pillars of the Constitution: the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. So Supreme Court, in all fairness, felt that all the three pillars, one representative from the three pillars of the Constitution, should be made part of this. But new bill, Section 7, it says that the Election Commissioner shall be appointed, of course, by the President, as the Constitution says, but it shall now be done on the recommendation of a selection committee, as Supreme Court had said, should be comprising of 3 people. That should include, of course, the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, so we have the other side, and a Union Cabinet Minister to be appointed by the Prime Minister. Keep in mind that democracy, when it is to be taken care of, the independence is done by 3 totally independent bodies. Supreme Court's judgment, leaving it to the Parliament making the law and sticking to the fact that 3 different independent members should be done, has been taken care of under the Act. What needs to be seen is that the third, which is the most important, is the Union Cabinet Minister to be nominated by the Prime Minister would turn out to be an absolute independent member to have a say in all the 3 aspects of judiciary, the executive and the legislature. Now that independence needs to be checked on. And if
well,
it is
obviously,
a
the union minister is bound to agree with the view of the government of the day. And I'm talking about the selection panel, the search panel, coming up with a list of 5 individuals and then giving it to the selection panel. So, you could argue that it's going to be 2 versus 1, which is possibly what was sought to be eliminated. But you could also argue that putting the CGI was wrong because the judiciary is not supposed to play a role in what is effectively an executive matter, which is what the government's argument is. And the CGI was never meant to be on this panel. So I want to go across quickly to the Congress representative. Dolly Sharma is also joining us. Dolly, in the past, the Congress has very vehemently criticized this bill when it was passed in Rajya Sabha and now as well. What is the way forward for the Congress party as far as this bill is concerned? Because we've heard some murmurs from the opposition that they would like to challenge this in the Supreme Court, for example.
Yeah, this bill is totally unconstitutional and anti-people. This is very clear because putting up, removing the CJI from the committee and playing with their own cabinet minister itself is setting dangerous precedent. Because,
but there is no precedent in this case. Dolly, the problem is exactly this. There was no precedent in this case.
No, that's what I'm saying. That it itself is stating that, of course, because of the cabinet minister will go with the government, and removing the CJI is giving a dangerous sign to the constitution, to this nation, to the democracy. Why do they want to do this? This is a clear, as I said, unconstitutional message that has, today gone to the entire nation. What is the need? Do they want to create an fascism जैसा चल रहा है यहाँ हिटलर शाही पूरी चलाना चाहते हैं, तानाशाही पूरी चली रही है देश में, and by removing the CJI is giving the message to the entire nation कि yes, अब हम लोकतंत्र में नहीं है और नहीं रहेंगे, क्योंकि जिस तरीके की we are going to challenge this to the Supreme Court. We will move to the Supreme Court because this is totally the murder of democracy that we see today.
Can I just ask you as a follow-up, the Supreme Court judgment in itself said that this panel that they are envisaging with the CGI in it was to be functioning only till the government brings in a law or the parliament passes a law. So on what grounds will you challenge it again in the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court gave away to the government to bring this bill.
No, but putting up a CJI is always good when it comes to, the democracy. You cannot think of a cabinet minister taking a decision against the government. Of course, the minister will go with the government.
Yes,
that's clear.
Precisely the point the government is making. I want to go across to Siddharth Yadav of the BJP also joining us, but I do want to explain this for our viewers beyond party lines. When the CECs were being appointed in India since independence, they were being done purely at the behest of the executive. There was no role of the judiciary. So it's not like there was a role of the judiciary which has been eliminated now. The role of the CGI was brought in only via this Supreme Court judgment. Before that, it was the government of the day, the executive of the day that was deciding who the CEC should be. So if no heavens fell then, what heavens have fallen down now is the question that will arise. And the government has been very categorical in saying that there is a separation of power in our constitution. The judiciary is not meant to interfere in matters which are in the executive's domain. But on that, I want to bring in Siddharth Yadav as well. There are doubts emerging. And we are marching towards the 2024 general elections, big elections to take place in the country. And clearly the opposition is raising doubts on the neutrality of the Election Commission. That by eliminating the CJI, the government wants to remote control the Election Commission itself. How do you respond to that?
Shivani, first of all, I think whenever any of my friends from Congress come out and say that the democracy is in danger or the constitution is in danger, they should actually go back and see the conduct of their MPs, what they do on the stairs of the temple of democracy, and how they do for the second highest constitutional position of our country. Some Atmanthan there can probably, make the picture clearer. But I have to speak on this bill today. Definitely the provision laid down by the Supreme Court was only a temporary one. And the Supreme Court made it very clear that the setup is only going to be up till the government makes a law. If we have to look at any change, I think the change is that the voice of opposition has been added to the setup wherein the Chief Election Commissioner will be now appointed. It was always never in the Congress rule, never in the history when they ruled the country. They even never cared about how the CEC is being appointed. They thought so, they appointed one, and no problems happened according to them. But now today, when finally a bill has been made, a committee will be formed, a panel will be there, and entire procedure has been laid down to select the Chief Election Commissioner. I think it's very unjust on the part of the entire opposition, especially on Congress, that they want to blow something out of proportion.
Okay,
and I'm really shocked that my friend from Congress was saying that it is anti-people. The people's Lok Sabha, the people's Rajya Sabha is deciding this. The people's representatives are voting for a bill that the people, it cannot be anti-people. There is a setup in our constitution. That setup has to be followed. The executive, the separation of power has to be followed. The executive, ma'am, I was not speaking in between of you. If you want to speak, please go ahead. I'll not speak. Dolly, I was not speaking in between of you. Please have the courtesy to hear me out. Please have the courtesy to hear
Siddharth,
me.
I just want to quickly come in.
Shivani, are you saying something?
Yes, very quickly finish. I'll give you 10 seconds.
Sure.
I want to come in after that, please.
Yeah, so there is a very clear separation of power in our constitution. That separation of power gives the absolute right to the legislature, to the executive, to lay out any law for any such appointment. There can be no overpowering, there can be no crossing the line between the wings of our democracy.
Okay.
And
In
that
fact,
is what has
that
been
is
followed
what
in
is
this bill.
enshrined in the
opposition has a
Constitution.
say
I'll go to the lawyer in just a bit on that, but I do want to point out, Dolly, I'm coming to you. Even the Supreme Court in its then judgment in March had said that, you know, the founding fathers had contemplated a law on the selection or the appointment of the CECs by Parliament. 7 decades have passed and political dispensations of all hues, which includes almost 60 years of Congress party, have not introduced a law. No, so they've talked about how the politicians have not taken a cue. Clearly, for all of these decades that Congress was in power, you didn't bring in a law, you certainly did not include the judiciary. If democracy was not under danger then, can you explain to our viewers, how will you explain to them that democracy is in danger now that there's a different government, but it wasn't in danger then, when the Congress governments were electing the CECs, those CECs were neutral, then the Election Commission was completely neutral?
Don't you think it's a 2:1 dominance of the committee?
What was the committee earlier under Congress?
No, it's the Prime Minister, one cabinet minister, and the leader of opposition who's not allowed to speak in the parliament. His mic, they switch off, and the opposition parliament members are also thrown out of the parliament. Here Siddharth Yadav is speaking hell lot of things about what the Modi government is doing. Clearly, people can see today that nobody can speak about the unemployment today in the parliament. We cannot speak about the farmers.
Dolly, I'll come to the parliament disruptions. I'll come to the parliament disruptions.
Now 2:1 dominance.
Dolly, one second. You're not answering my question. I'll come to the parliament disruptions in just a bit. But you didn't answer my question. When for 60 years Congress governments were electing the CEC without a CJI or the judiciary on the panel, how is it that those election commissions were neutral, but today it is not neutral? What is the difference?
So, I am clearly saying that if appointing a CJI makes the committee fair, why not this government is doing?
So why didn't Congress governments do that for 60 years?
We always did a free and fair elections.
How? But you know, this is what I'm saying. You're being partisan in your argument that elections were free and fair when you were in power, even though the CGI was not part of this panel. But elections will not be free and fair
I have already told you 2:1 the ratio.
So what was the ratio in the Congress parties? What was the ratio? Was the CGI there?
With the CGI there, we have always done the free and fair elections. Clearly, now you see when the parliament members are not allowed to speak in the parliament.
I'll come to the parliament disruptions in just a bit, but I am discussing the CEC bill and the merits of the CEC bill, and particularly the allegations that the election commission is not going to be neutral now. Once again, one by one, Dolly, one by one, parliament disruptions I have discussed for the last 1 week. I will also bring that issue in, but please allow me to conduct this. My point is that you're going to go to the public and suddenly say this election commission is not neutral, which is an independent body, envisaged under the Constitution. It will shake the belief of the public in the largest electoral exercise that is conducted anywhere in the world. If elections were free and fair by the same EC mechanism under Congress governments, the credit goes to the election commission. And if the election commission, if the elections are going to be fair today, the credit should go to the election commission, not to the governments of the day. But my fundamental question has not been answered. How were election commissions neutral when there was no CGI on the panel for 70 years, but they don't remain neutral now? That question is the most fundamental question, Siddharth Yadav.
Absolutely, Shivani. I think, it is, you asked the question, but there is no answer to this question, because I think it has become a fashion for the Congress and the entire opposition to just try and make a narrative and build a propaganda that this is happening, that is happening, while in their rule, it was even worse. And I do not, hesitate saying that, because today at least the entire procedure is laid down. We have a panel, a committee. The Supreme Court has also asked the government, rather, to make a law on this. And for that, they made an interim provision, which was being followed. But now the government has come up with a new law.
But can I ask
think
you?
for
Can
the
I
people
ask you?
of the country,
But can
we
I also
should-
ask you? The Supreme. You may say that there is a separation power and all, but the Supreme Court in its judgment also said that there is a need to insulate the functioning of the ECs from the executive interference. The party in power will have insatiable quest to remain in power. Just because it flew under Congress rule doesn't mean it becomes kosher under you too. Do you not believe that there could be greater transparency?
Absolutely, Shivani. I think what the Supreme Court has said is a very general statement. We have seen for 60 years that the party always had a quest to remain in power, always, and that would be true for any party. We are governing this country today. We are not going to be there forever. We are making a law for the betterment of this country. The transparency absolutely should be there, and for that, the provisions of removal of the CEC, the provisions or appointment of the CEC are being laid out. But when I say that the opposition voice, the LOP, is also part of the panel, and now with that say, the CEC is going to be appointed, and the procedure is going to be more transparent to the constitutionally elected leader of the opposition. I think that is how the country should run. In a legislature and executive function, we cannot just include judiciary by assuming the fact that any inclusion of judiciary in any matter of this country would bring in transparency.
I think you make a fair point. I think you make a fair point. I think we need to be mature enough to be able to discuss these issues. With all due respect to the judiciary, there is a separation of power. In recent times, there's been judicial activism or excessism being discussed, not just in India, but in many countries. And whether just adding judiciary means that the process automatically becomes absolutely fair and above board is also a fundamental question to ask. But on the separation of powers, I want to go across to Sumit Chandar one more time. The court also said that ordinarily the court cannot usurp what is purely a legislative power or function. But where there exists a gap or a vacuum, the court may not shy away from its judicial function. Do you think it's fair for the court to step in and appoint itself as one of the custodians of an appointment when the constitution doesn't give it that power?
The Supreme Court was only trying to fill up a vacuum which existed till then. And at that stage, to create an independent body altogether, the reliance has to be on the three pillars of the Constitution. So the legislature, the executive, and they were made the part. Now, in the Supreme Court also felt that in order to ensure the purity of the election process, it has always been thought by our constitution makers that the responsibility to hold free and fair elections in the country should be entrusted to an absolute independent body. Now, there is, for this purpose, there is a section 6 which everybody has been ignoring. Section 6 of the new bill also says that there will be a search committee which will be headed by the cabinet secretary. So executive comes into the picture, and 2 members not below the rank of the secretary to the government of India will prepare a panel of 5 persons for the consideration by this committee. So this committee is also restricted to the 5 persons which will be brought up by the cabinet secretary and 2 of its members. So those things to be taken into consideration, and if anybody feels that this itself is still not creating an independent body, then you're always open to go back to the Supreme Court.
In fact, I was going to ask you exactly that question. The opposition has suggested, Dolly Sharma has also suggested that they wish to take this to the Supreme Court, challenge this bill because it is coming after the Supreme Court judgment, even though that judgment gave the leeway to the government or to bring a bill and for the parliament to pass a law, and they did not put any riders on what that selection committee by the in the bill should be. So they gave that leeway to the government. But do you think the Supreme Court can adjudicate again whether this bill is constitutional or not? Can it be taken to the Supreme Court on a constitutionality test?
Anywhere where the Supreme Court feels that yes, somewhere some provision of the Constitution has been hindered, or we are going beyond the structure of the Constitution. Like in this case, the provision arises or the need arises from Article 324 of the Constitution, which says that the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioners shall be made by the President. So now, if the Supreme Court feels that the independence, which was the basic requirement of this body of the Chief Election Commissioner, is not taken care of, then yes, Supreme Court can intervene and strike down this provision as unconstitutional. Or
you don't feel, Sumit, you don't feel that there will be criticisms of judicial excessism here? Excessism?
my feelings at this stage will not make much of a difference, because end of the day it's a 5 judges bench which passed a judgment, and tomorrow again if it is challenged they are going to consider. But yes, what needs to be ensured is the independence of the
Election
body.
Commission, yes. Okay,
Yes.
I want to go across to Siddharth Yadav now. Siddharth, we've seen what has transpired over the last 1 week or so. Nearly 150 of opposition MPs have been suspended, predominantly from the Lok Sabha. You know, this bill was brought in in Rajya Sabha earlier, then brought in and passed in Lok Sabha. There's not even a great debate that has taken place. Now, is that the way you want to pass quote-unquote contentious bills? Shouldn't the opposition at least be heard? And wouldn't that be your responsibility, so that when the bill does pass, then there are no doubts left, then nobody can say we weren't heard?
Shivani, but who is to blame? I think we should ask that question first. The day when the opposition was making a ruckus in the parliament, that day also had very important bills. We had the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam bill, we had the J&K reservation bill in Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. But the opposition is not believing in participating in any debate, discourse, discussion. That is not the choice of opposition. If the opposition is resorting to gundagardi in the parliament and they just want to take it as a hostage and ensure that no bill for the people's welfare should be discussed and passed there, I think for the welfare of the people of this country, it must be ensured that no such intention should be given any leverage at any spot. The parliament is to discuss for the welfare of the people of this country, the poor, the backward, the women, the youth. And for that discussion, the opposition also has to participate in a constructive manner. But you have to come out in the well-placed placards and do any sort of ruckus.
Can I take that to Dolly? Now, Dolly, I'll point out. One second, Dolly, let me ask the question. Dolly, let me ask the question. You know, here is where a fundamental point needs to be established. Since December 13, when that intrusion took place, from the next day, the opposition was demanding a statement from the Home Minister. I don't want to get into the merit of what the standoff is for, but subsequently the suspensions happened. Incidentally, this bill, the CEC bill, was brought in Rajya Sabha on December 12th, a day before that intrusion and a day before this standoff, 2 days before this standoff began. But do you know what happened in Rajya Sabha on December 12th? When this bill was tabled, the opposition walked out. This bill was passed after an opposition walkout. Now, with what face is the opposition going to say that you are not being allowed to participate when you walk out when the bills are presented?
See, it's very clear. We don't walk out. Do you think they allow us to speak? They switch off the mic. And whenever the opposition, any member of parliament speaks in the parliament, everybody from the other side starts shouting. You have seen the way they shouted at Mallikarjun Kharge. What do you think they want to establish here? We've seen how they brought the farmers' law, and how did they discuss?
But why did the opposition walk out? It doesn't serve your purpose if you don't get yourself heard. In Rajya Sabha, for example, you could have participated in the discussion. You could have laid your points down.
We are laying our point, but compromising with the security of parliament. Do you think it is good?
I'm talking about December 12th. This is precisely why I mentioned the date. The day this bill was tabled in Rajya Sabha and passed in Rajya Sabha was December 12th. This whole issue of the parliament intrusion hadn't even arisen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Ki whenever we try and participate, what do you think they do? They switch off the mics. The other side starts shouting. They doesn't allow you to speak. They doesn't allow to speak.
In a discussion for a bill, which is slated, there is designated time given to all sides. I have not heard of any instances of mics being put off at that time. That may be when there are interruptions made. But I'm almost at the end of this. I just want to ask one more time to Dolly Sharma that do you believe that this could become one of the big issues that the Congress and the opposition parties could raise? Because I emphasize a big election in 2024 is coming up, and would it be right to continue to question the neutrality of the Election Commission?
Yes, I think if you're getting this law 2014 के आप टाइम पर आप पावर में आए और उसके बाद तो आप लाए नहीं कोई बिल, और अगर आप अब लाए हैं तो why is the ratio 2:1? Why not the CJI? अगर आप लॉ ला रहे हैं तो CJI को रखिए, एक ऑपोजिशन लीडर को रखिए, पार्लियामेंट को रखिए. Why the ratio is not? Why is the ratio
Why should it be 2:1 is also a question when it wasn't earlier. But Siddharth Yadav, how will you assuage the fears that some may have, naturally would have and legitimately will have on the neutrality of the Election Commission? How will you assuage those fears and doubts?
Shivani, we are all concerned about the legitimate fears. Those legitimate fears are going to be addressed on all constitutional forums of our country. The discussion is happening on your television today. Similar public discussions will happen, but there is no remedy for the illegitimate fears. If someone wants to build an illegitimate fear, does not want to participate in when the bill is actually being presented and passed, do not want to present any opinion, because actually they know that there is nothing to oppose in it.
No, but why
and
not
they,
bring in
and
the
they want to
neutral
just
body
create a
CJI
propaganda.
into it?
There is no solution that we have for that.
I'll leave it at
But
that. I've run out of time.
the people
It
of
is,
the country
of course, very important that the Election Commission type body in India is not brought into party politics, and its stature is not brought down so that people lose faith in it. That's the fundamental issue here. Moving on, we do have some breaking updates now coming in. This is information coming in regarding an encounter that has happened in Poonch. The Indian Army has issued a statement. They have said, based on hard intelligence, a joint operation was launched last night. Contact has been established today evening and encounter is in progress. Earlier today, it was reported that terrorists had opened fire at an army vehicle, post which this statement from the Indian Army has come. Let me go across to my colleague Akash Sharma, who's joining us. Akash, what is the latest that we have on this encounter?
So first of all, it's an operation, Shivani, and the theories of that ambush on vehicle were wrong. Secondly, the official statement is clearly pointing out that how, on the basis of hard intelligence, this joint operation was launched yesterday night, and this is basically the DKG area that lies in Surankot of Poonch district in Jammu. Now, when we talk about this area, so this has become a hot belt in the past few months, and as of now, we are learning that this operation is on where additional parties and ambulances have been sent on the spot. Public movement have been restricted, and as of now, while we are talking, this operation is on where firefighting is going on between the terrorists and the Indian Army personnel. We are learning about injuries on the both sides, but we have no confirmation on injuries. But yes, in some time from now, we're expecting some more clarity as far as this particular operation is concerned. Sure.
Akash, can I just ask you quickly, what is the update we have on this, the terrorists opening fire on an army vehicle? What more do we know? What really happened?
So this was a false theory. This was a false theory because, whenever you are talking about an operation, so Shivani, as I mentioned that, this operation was launched last night.
Right.
Yes, contact has been established today. But as far as this vehicle fired upon theory is concerned, so this was a false theory.
Okay.
In fact, army officers are telling that contact was established at that time and not that it was some sort of ambush or something like that.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. Akash Sharma, thanks a lot for joining us. Time for a very short break. On the other side, we will get you more of the Prime Minister's interview with Financial Times. This time responding not just to large criticisms against him and his style of governance, but also the question of minority treatment that the BJP often receives.
Hello, Moto.
Co-powered by
Welcome back. Prime Minister Narendra Modi took on criticisms of him and his government, especially with regards to authoritarianism and treatment of minorities in his recent interview to international publication The Financial Times. Now, in an interview where he exuded confidence about a third consecutive term, he also said that he's very confident of victory in 2024 thanks to his record of solid change in the common man's life. He added that people of India today have very different aspirations than even 10 years ago, and they know which party is the best party to ensure India's flight that it is on the cusp of. But I want to highlight his answers on the more vexing issues he and his government have faced over the last 10 years, and that has always been the allegations of being dictatorial and anti-Muslims. So first up, this is what the Prime Minister said on these issues, on the overall criticism and whether there is an environment of pressure on voices to speak against his government. So he said that there is a whole ecosystem that is using the freedom available in our country and are hurling these allegations at us every day through editorials, TV channels, social media, videos, tweets, etc. They have the right to do so, he says, but others also have an equal right to respond with facts. He added that those who doubt his government will be proven wrong in the same way as Britishers' dire prediction about India were proven wrong post-independence. On whether Indian democracy is backsliding, now that's a large criticism that has been made globally against India under Narendra Modi. He said, our critics are entitled to their opinions and the freedom to express them. However, there is a fundamental issue with such allegations which often appear as criticisms. He goes on to say that these allegations insult the intelligence of the Indian people. They also underestimate their deep commitment to values like diversity and democracy. There's been a large pressure or criticism of the opposition parties in India that the news report also mentions that if Modi was to come to power again, for example, for a third consecutive term, he could alter the Indian constitution in a way that the nature of Indian democracy could change completely. There have been fears of how India could become a Hindu Rashtra or a Hindu republic. He says on this that any talk of amending the constitution is meaningless. He talks about the large work his government has done and how all of those large-scale on-ground changes were effected without any constitutional changes but with the participation of the public. Now, he was also asked about minorities' treatment in India, especially the Muslims. To this, he said, without referring to India's large number of Indian Muslims, 20 crore almost at last count, Indian Muslims in India, he said, despite facing persecution elsewhere in the world, they, and he was talking about the Parsis or the Jews, have found a safe haven in India. That shows that the Indian society itself has no feeling of discrimination towards any religious minority. So he's answered that question by talking about India's large tradition of even allowing a micro minority, as the Parsis are, to allowing them to flourish even though they have faced discrimination all across the world. He didn't quite speak of Muslims directly. The question we asked today is this: has the PM sufficiently answered his critics, especially speaking to a foreign publication like the Financial Times that has also been one of his biggest critics in the past? Let's go across to our guest joining us. PKD Nambiar is a political analyst, so is Ravi Srivastav. I'm also joined by Tehseen Poonewala, political analyst. I want to take this beyond party lines, so I don't want to get stuck in the rhetoric that you often get when you're speaking directly to parties concerned. So I want to take this beyond and not be stuck with that. I want to begin with Tehseen Poonewala. You know, this question of minorities has been posed to Narendra Modi since he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. And, you know, since the last 10 years, we've seen that question. Frankly, as his government says, there's nothing that can be pointed out as an act of the government under Narendra Modi that is discriminatory. So why is it that this question keeps chasing, or is it just a narrative because this is easy to do against Narendra Modi? And is that narrative successful after 10 years?
Thank you for having me on the show, Shivani. Good evening. It's not a narrative that is just fake propaganda. It is rooted in some amount of truth. Why it doesn't succeed is because the Prime Minister and the BJP have an entire ecosystem that overlaps the truth. So it doesn't succeed because of that. But it is the truth that there is a lot of authoritarianism and there is a lot of hate being spread in our country, much more than what was being spread in the past. Speeches made by top people in the BJP, and they've got away with it, are based on hate. In fact, Biduri, the speech he made and the BJP apologized for it. What punishments happened to Biduri? Nothing. He got promoted. Yesterday he spoke on the criminal law bills. Imagine he spoke on criminal law bills. And minority does not only mean religious minority. So that's a misconception. Minorities means all kinds of minorities. Today, just now, as I sit with you, the minority gender population, women, are female wrestlers, Jat wrestlers for the vice president, because he used that, who are molested. They were touched in inappropriate places when asked for protein by Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh's gang won the WFI elections. The Prime Minister has not removed him. If Prime Minister removes Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh, he doesn't lose a majority.
From where?
Has the Prime
Doesn't
Minister
remove
taken
him
action?
from where?
Will remove him from, ask him to resign as MP or kick him out of the BJP.
You do
Nothing will
know that
happen.
the party can't remove an elected representative from parliament.
No, the party can. No, Shivani, you're wrong. I've studied the constitution. A party can remove him. He will continue to be an MP.
Yeah.
The party will have the whip won't apply on him.
Yeah, so he
Number one.
continues to
Number
be an MP.
two,
You
exactly.
can't
I never
be,
said
your
remove him.
MPship cannot be taken away till
One
he
second.
gets,
No, Shiv-
till he gets
Shivani,
convicted.
I've read the constitution. One second. I've read the constitution. I never said remove him as an MP.
Then
Go
you
back
said
on your
from
own.
parliament,
I
you said, no?
No, I said from his party,
Okay.
from the BJP. That's what I said. You can kick him out from the BJP. Did they kick him out? He continues. He did a press conference on women's safety.
Okay.
That man.
So, Tessin, I want to understand from you. Do
Please
you
explain
believe
to-
that,
No, I-
one
more
second,
line. I'll
do
take
you
one more line.
believe
Let's
that,
just take one more line.
yeah,
Adding to this, authoritarianism. Today, the Bombay High Court released Gautam Navlakha. I hate left loonies. I think they're absolute. They're a weight on our society. But Gautam Navlakha spent 3 years in prison on the accusation that he tried to assassinate our Prime Minister. Not one evidence was given. That charge was withdrawn. That charge was withdrawn. A man, however we may dislike him, I dislike him, spent 3 years of his life in prison on the charge of assassinating our Prime Minister by the NIA, which was withdrawn in court. They withdrew that charge. You
So-
put somebody in on a charge.
Tessin,
What is going on?
the question that I'm trying to ask is that, you know, all of these things that you're talking about, parliamentarians having sketchy records or allegations, serious allegations, there are parliamentarians who've had allegations of rape, not just sexual misconduct. The fact that you're talking about how, you know, one person has spent time in jail, a lot of these things have happened in the past. My point is, what is it that is happening so dramatically different in today's India under Narendra Modi that does not have any parallel? What used to happen for all of these years in 60 years? All of these cases have precedence. All parties can be accused of having people who've either said things that are hate speech. By the way, if you're talking about hate speech, one such member of an assembly has been made a speaker in an assembly. What about his speech?
I agree.
So
I
my
agree.
point,
I think that was ridiculous.
Exactly. So my
I think
point
it was ridiculous by the Congress.
Exactly.
I'll take the name. The
My
Congress
point
is wrong.
is-
I've tweeted about it.
My point is this: what is it that you have against Narendra Modi that is so dramatically different and peerless and precedentless that has happened in India over the last 10 years, which nobody can say has never happened in India?
Hate hasn't been mainstreamed as it has now. It's
But
been
that's an
mainstreamed
opinion.
now. It is. No, it's not an opinion. It's cool. It's cool to be vindictive. So you've always had this problem in India, but this was always a whisper. Now you have parliamentarians in parliament using the most cuss words I cannot use on a show, and no action being taken. For the shame of it, action was taken in the
Do
past.
you know in
They-
Parliament, an MP also said for what he said for North Indian states? Is that not
I
hate?
think that was. Of course it is hate. I was the first to call it out.
This is
I was
precisely
the
what I'm
first.
saying. For
But-
every
but-
such
but,
incidents you can point out to
allow
me,
one second.
I can
But there
actually
again,
refer to
listen.
instances that have happened. But the
And-
amount of...
and-
One second.
and then, does that
Tessin,
make it-
I
does
have
that
limited
make it-
time. Two of my guests haven't spoken.
Sure.
What my point is that the amount of criticism Narendra Modi has got, this is not after his 10 years of being in office. From the day he came to this office, it was said democracy will die in India. minorities will die in India. There have been campaigns called of Muslim genocide. None of that is true. So is this criticism just criticism for the sake of criticism? I want to go across to Ravi. One second, Tehseen. Ravi Srivastava first, then PKD Nambiar will also respond. Ravi Srivastava?
Yeah. Shivani, good evening. You asked a very valid question that what has changed in last 10 years. I will tell you what has changed in last 10 years.
Yes.
We used to live with an absolute amicably all religions, all communities, all castes till 2013.
Is that true?
Years, we have got a serious divide, a communal divide, a total distrust amongst the religions. You will find different things happening. And I would refer to the statement by the Honorable Home Minister who said just now that what was done in Gujarat has put the minorities in a place. Now they will never raise their head or something like that. As if
he said
admitting
that the way the 2002 riots were handled, there have been no riots in Gujarat since then. That's what he said.
That's what he said exactly. Yes, that he said it. He rather vindicated what had happened in Gujarat in 2002. He almost vindicated that. So that's what I'm saying, that this kind of hatred, divide, communal divide, hate for the other religion was never there. This has happened.
I think that's a challengeable statement. I'll tell you why. You said that this kind of hate and communities living together peacefully was witnessed till 2013 and has not happened since. Actually, if you look at the actual data on rioting and communal incidents in India, noted by the NCRB, that data, rioting and cases of communal incidents have gone down in India since 2014. Now, I don't know how to reconcile with what you feel versus what has been recorded on ground. I'm acceptable of your feeling, but feelings are different from facts. PKD Nambiar, what do you think?
Very interesting. Tehseen has started, Tehseen generally play the mid role, even though he's a Congress sympathizer, and I always salute his spirit of being true. But one thing I'll tell you, Tehseen, you made a small mistake today, that there's a fake propaganda. Of course, there is a fake propaganda. The toilets which were made, millions of toilets are made in India for the first time in a way, for the poor people, the underprivileged people, is a fake propaganda. The number of bank accounts which are Jan Dhan Yojana, wherein through which the complete policy has been changed and direct benefit transfer has been transferred to every individual's money. The number of accounts which Jan Dhan accounts are made is a propaganda, fake propaganda. So every word, whether it is whether the roads are getting constructed in the world record way, that is also fake propaganda. How long this Modi hatred will take all of you? Where are you going to be in? The reality is that the 80% of the people, when they get free ration, whether it could be Muslims, Parsis, Christians, or any other, or Sikh, it's included for everybody. Is there any scheme which in India which has been made only for a particular section of the society? Is it for only Muslims, or is it for only for Christians, or for only for Hindus? Definitely no.
No, that is an important point. That's the only way you can judge a government. Yes, what is that the government has done which has been discriminatory? And for 10 years, we've been discussing discrimination by this government, and nobody has been able to point out even one. In fact, the data from the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister suggests that actually the most beneficiaries amongst the poor amongst India of the government's flagship schemes have been those who are non-Hindus. So, Tehseen, how long are you going to keep throwing this charge?
Let me bust this myth.
Okay.
Let me bust this myth.
Yeah, PKD, one second. PKD wants to just finish in 10 seconds, then you take on from here.
Please.
28% more housing for the Muslim community. Is that true? Or it's false. Is it true that all the benefits of the governance has been offered more than the Hindus? It is for the Muslims are the major beneficiary. Isn't it true? You take any.
Okay, let him respond. Let him respond.
The problem is that
May I respond? PKD, I understood your point. And I knew this was, PKD, I understood your point and I knew this was where you were coming to, and I have a lot of respect for you. But PKD, let me humbly put that this is wrong. This is data propagated by the government of India. Can anyone on this panel, including you, PKD, please tell me, how does the government know whether a house is going to a Hindu or Muslim? Do they fill the forms? Have you seen the form, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana form? I've seen it.
It comes from the National Health Survey.
Please.
It comes, I'll tell you where it comes from.
I'll allow you. Please allow me to finish.
But Tehseen, I'm answering your question. That data comes from the National Health Survey.
I know it comes. So allow me. I know because this answer was given to me. There are two places it comes from as per government or friends who are who study well, which you do. One, National Health Survey. Number two is the banks, particularly State Bank of India. Neither of these columns, neither of this data, by constitutional law, can be shared by the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So now I am asking you, is this government in violation of our constitutional rights by asking the State Bank of India?
By name.
No, please, I request you.
This is classification that the National Health Survey does on many parameters. Hasn't started on 2014.
Please tell me, Shivani.
Oh my God. Okay, let him finish. PKD, let him finish.
I'm asking, let your viewers understand. I am supposed to get a house under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. A to B is supposed to get. How does the health data or the State Bank of India data reach here without consent A, when by law it's not allowed? I've gone to Supreme Court on that.
I'll tell you why.
Two,
can I answer you?
Where does the government get this data to give it out? 28% Muslims got it.
1 second. Can I just come in? PKD, I'll give you an opportunity, and Ravi Srivastava also.
Tehseen,
I am not a statistician and I am not an authority. I am not an authority on this, but I did read that survey that was released by the National Health Survey, which was released. And the way they do it, of course, is they measure it as an increase over a period of time. You understand?
How do they know the Pradhan Mantri ka ghar mila hai? So that's what I'm saying. वो तो घर measure करते ना. They are not allowed to share data. So how do you know Pradhan Mantri?
This is a survey. They go to people.
करेक्ट, उन्होंने शिवानी के घर में आए कि शिवानी के पास घर है, पीकेडी के पास घर है, तेहसीन के पास प्रधानमंत्री वाला घर मिला.
Because the people share that. How did they build their house? They get this through the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. But they go to. I don't understand what the objection here is. घर मिल रहा है या नहीं मिल रहा है? This is a unique problem that you should not map who the beneficiaries are. That is your criticism.
Not Tehseen the truth. Okay, 1
second. I have limited time. PKD and then Ravi Srivastava. 1 second, limited time. Yes.
Admitted to that unemployment rate is 9%. The Prime Minister himself admitted it. It's a part of the interview. He admitted it. And it's the worst. This is the worst. To the young aspiring population of India, you know that engineering graduates out of
Oh God, we've lost the link with Ravi. We'll try and get it back. But I think he made the point on unemployment. Now, I am not defending the government on unemployment figures. My point was, and I'm particularly discussing the criticism that Narendra Modi as a person and his government gets on minorities, on issues of authoritarianism and minority. I'm not discussing unemployment or economy here. I'm leaving that because that's a vast debate. PKD Nambiar.
See, well, the problem, as I said, is all about a Modi hatred. And as much as you hate and as much as you conspire against him every day, what they are doing is that they are using the more name of the Rahul Gandhi than the Modi. That is going to be in his advantage. And I think the time has come for all of us to criticize the policies, not an individual, because you don't like him. That should be over. I think we all know that in the last 9.5 years, how the country has transformed. It is ready to take off to a next level, a growing country wherein the per capita income has been almost doubled in the last 9.5 years for the common man. That is the one thing which matters.
Okay, can I ask very quickly? Tehseen, unfortunately, we've lost Ravi's link. Yes, PKD, very quickly, please. I have 30 seconds.
I'm just saying that at the end of the day, what matters today is that one needs to experience the governance. And I, as a citizen of this country, I experience
Yeah, again, that is experiential. I don't want to get into the experiential because everybody's experience can be different. But Tehseen, this is the fundamental point which the Prime Minister also raises in his interview, that the vishwas he has of the public doesn't come from anything else. Yeah. It comes from the ground change he has been able to effect. He has called it his Suraksha Kavach in the past. And no matter how many of these attacks on so-called minority, minorities treatment be thrown at him, it's not sticking.
Yeah, it doesn't stick to him. That's true. I also do agree that he is the most popular leader in the country. And I do agree with my friend PKD that personal attacks on him simply do not work. Okay. There must be attacks on policy. So my advice to the opposition is attack on policies, bring out flaws in his policy, in his administration, because I don't agree with PKD. The per capita income's gone up to almost double. There's been a serious debt problem in our country. Debt is now almost 100%. IMF has warned us today. Okay. There are serious issues to take him on. Take him on those issues. With
but does the minority issue work is the question.
Just 10 seconds. The issues of our country is not the Prime Minister going in a dressing room or the size of the teeth of the lion on top of the parliament.
I get that.
If the opposition does that, then the opposition is falling for it.
All right. I leave it at that. Thanks a lot for our panelists for joining us. Also, time for me to take your leave. My colleague Rahul Shivshankar is joining you.
Viewers, look at those pictures on the right of you. Going by the scenes being relayed from Parliament, you would think that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a tyrant who has dismembered the democratic fabric of the nation. MPs suspended in huge numbers are carrying placards around their necks and in their hands lamenting the murder of democracy. Look at those placards. They're on the march and appealing to the world to sympathize with their plight. Their lament is that free speech is dead in India and anyone who dares to question the government is prosecuted for being an